Mic check, mic check. How do we sound? Okay. Check, check, check. Check, check, check. Check, check, check. Okay, that's better. We'll get started here in a couple minutes, just letting people all get into my Teams chat as well as in stream. up my microphone, start talking a little bit louder so people can hear me. Headphones out of my ears. Okay. There we go. All right. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the February Lunch and Learn for WiscWeb. For those of you who are joining us for the first time and are not aware of my voice, my name is Matt Goins. I do a number of things with the team, so you'll probably hear from me a number of times via email or this way as well. So, uh, yeah. So this is our February Lunch and Learn. I sent out the agenda this morning. Again, apologize for the number of emails you got from me this morning, just because of the fact that we had that brief outage this morning. The outage had to do with some updates that we were making to the server and into AWS, and the outage happened because we had some file permissions that we hadn't yet set on the production side of things. We found that, we addressed that, and the issue was relatively short-lived, but unexpected. So thank you all for your patience as we kind of tinkered with that and figured it out, and then Bill Joachimson was able to get in there, fix it for us. So that was what was happening this morning. We continue to investigate the other issue that we've been having recently, which is the post reverting to posts page when you try to publish something, or you have issues uploading to media. So that's one we continually kind of look at, and we have some ideas around it, but we're just tinkering with some solutions there. So again, apologies for those issues as they have cropped up. So for this month, just a couple of brief items that we want to touch on, specifically in relation to, I guess, service updates. First, which is one that we've communicated out a couple of times, as well as we have talked about in our previous Lunch and Learn, our January Lunch and Learn, which is beginning on February 16th. I'm looking at the page about to say June, and that's not right. Beginning February 16th, the WiscWeb service is going to make an update to our use of the UW theme, and we are going to be moving to the new campus branded fonts of Red Hat Text and Red Hat Display. I'm currently looking at the campus WordPress page, and I'll throw that into our chat here as well so you guys can take a look at it. But this is the new font that we are going to be using for our campus services. WiscWeb, as I said, is going to be moving to this on February 16th. We have, you may have seen a few other communications coming out about this based on whatever email list that you are a part of. I'm also part of the knowledge base team, so we are also looking at implementing this in the knowledge base as well. So just know that this is something that is a campus-wide effort to move away from Verlog and move towards Red Hat Text and Red Hat Display as our campus branded fonts. So again, that's just a reminder. That should hopefully not be a surprise to anyone, but so that's that. Again, if you have any questions about that, go ahead and drop that into the chat. We'll answer it as best we can, or you can email us, and we can chat with marketing if necessary to further answers that you. Sorry, things are popping up for me here. Okay. Second thing to touch on is you may have also noticed that we have implemented our new WiscWeb dashboard alert at the top of the page. And this is something that I demoed last month, and it is something that we have been looking at doing, mainly because we want to continue to provide more information to you from us in the internal side of your site in the dashboard editing area. So Again, Andrea Running is our developer who's been working on a number of these things. She's added in these widgets on the dashboard area with some information, administrators, the help area, the sites area, and then the brand and editorial help is over there. But then this is the newest one that we launched this week, and it's just a way for us to get announcements out there to you all. So right now, the most pertinent announcement that we have is regarding the transition to Red Hat happening on February 16th. So again, this is just something. This is just another way for us to get more information to you all in as many ways as we can. We'll always send out emails, but again, not everybody reads the emails. Not everybody gets the emails in a timely manner. So we're just trying to make sure we get as much information to you all as possible. The other thing that I touched on in the email is collapse this guy. We have a plugin that is currently active, which is the duplicate page plugin. And so what the duplicate page plugin does is it allows you to duplicate a page, an event, a post, anything like that. It allows you to duplicate it and create a draft out of it. Now, that was the plugin that we had been using for a long time, since maybe the service began. And it's worked, and it worked fine, and there's nothing specifically wrong with it. However, in some of the feature requests and some of the things that we have done to improve quality of life for editing and for creating pages, we added the Yoast duplicate post plugin, which is the plugin that allows you to do things like cloning, which is essentially a direct copy, new draft, which is same idea, and then most importantly is this rewrite and republish, which is it allows you to create a draft based on this particular page or post or event or whatever it might be, and edit it. And then once you're done editing it, republish it to replace this page. So it's kind of like an edit in place kind of thing where the most current version stays, but you're able to edit a version of it and then swap the two once you are, or like essentially rewrite the one that is the current version with the draft version. So because we have two plugins sort of doing the same thing, and really the Yoast duplicate post plugin is more robust, we are going to remove the duplicate page plugin from the service. There should be no significant issue that you all would see from that, other than you will no longer see the duplicate this option in your pages list and when you're looking at a page. So the duplicate this option right there, that will no longer be there, and you would have to manually activate the Yoast plugin, similar to the Yoast duplicate post plugin. I want to make sure I specify that because we're not adding Yoast, which is another beast entirely. This is just the Yoast duplicate post plugin. You'd have to manually add that. So it really shouldn't be too much of a surprise to people if that goes away. I'm not sure how many people use it on a regular basis, but we just have something that does the job better. So we want to make sure that we don't have redundancy happening within the service, because as I've said in the past, the more plugins we have, the more issues we may potentially run into. So both active in your cream somewhere. Yes, yes, Sheena, I have both active. I have so duplicate this is duplicate page. That is the old plugin. Copy to new draft and rewrite and republish is Yoast duplicate post. Those are what appears there. So Kelly, for your question, my assumption is you don't have the new plugin active, and then that leads into, I believe, Michael's question, which is there something there? Please hold, stop up. So here is how you activate plugins within our service. That's how you activate. That's how you self-service activate. And then here is the plugin. Here is the KB document for the plugin itself for Yoast duplicate post. And again, I'm happy, if anybody wants to see me do it in the future, I'm happy to demo the Yoast thing again. But it's relatively straightforward. Don't be overwhelmed by the rewrite republish process. So, so that's that one. Again, throw any. Oh, good. That's good to hear, Michael. So So I have found the duplicate post plugin, the new one, to be way more efficient than duplicate page. So that's the main reason we're looking to get rid of it, because it does it and it does it better. Let's see here. Two last notes before we have our guests present for us. I've been beating the drum for quite a while now, over a year now, about the fact that Google Analytics is going to be going away. And oh no, I don't have the announcement up there. Oh, bummer. Anyways, so for those of you who are not aware, let's have a chat. But Google Analytics is no longer going to collect data using the Universal Analytics code beginning on July 1, 2023. You will have to be moved over to the Google Analytics 4 property, I guess is the best way to put it. Yes, yes. I didn't even think about that, but yes, Alan, it's working. You will have to be moved to the Google Analytics 4 property to continue to collect data moving forward. Now, Google recently sent out an email to property owners, and I thought I had the message up here, so I apologize for that, but let me see if I can look quick to grab that email. So here's the email that Google sent out recently. Oh, Nelly, that is a massive banner up there. Hey, folks, user experience. So anyways, Google is actually going to do a process for you to create the GA4 property moving forward. And it's going to be a basic setup. I think it said beginning in March. So starting in March, they're going to do some of this process already. The thing is, it's still going to be looking at your UA tag, your Universal Analytics tag, your sites, I should say. I'm sorry. They're still going to be set up for your Universal Analytics tags. So you're still going to have to go through the process of updating either your site customizer or your Google Tag Manager to also be reading the GA4 tag. So that's a long-winded way of me saying, hey, folks, I've been beating this drum for a while. Let's chat if you need to about getting your Google Analytics set up, because you got to get it done or you're going to no longer get data. So let's chat. It really isn't a difficult process. It really isn't. But, let's get out ahead of it so that nothing bad happens for you guys starting July 1. So anyways, that's that. That drum hath been beaten. Again, just set up some office hours with me. You guys can either reach out to me directly, go to our WiscWeb site, and go to the support area and set up some time with myself. Yeah, with myself for office hours, and we can get it done. It's really quick. Last thing I wanted to touch on, and this actually came up in a support ticket that we got this week, but I think I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the semester, and I certainly try to mention it every year at the beginning of the academic year. But for those of you who are a long time admins who have had sites with us for quite a long time, make sure that you're paying attention to your users list and going in and reviewing who still has access to your site and who should or should not have access to your site. Because I had a ticket come in this week for a site where there had been a lot of turnover over the past year, and no one in the roles of web admins were there anymore, and they needed to get people in there to edit the site. So just make sure you're reviewing who has access, who should or shouldn't have access. Um, I will say, if any of you see a user in there, literally the net ID is just user. That's me. I will sometimes add myself to your site to be able to test some things out if you have emailed me about some support stuff. So feel free to remove it if you want to, but don't be alarmed if you see someone with the net ID literally as user. So just be aware of that. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Those are my brief updates that I had. Let's see. Font, theme, or WiscWeb update. Feature requests. Hey, if you have feature requests, go to our feature request board and ask them there. Google Analytics, the reminder about your users. Okay. So, the bulk of today, what we wanted to talk about, or what we wanted to have presented to you all, was we invited in some of the folks from the Center for User Experience here on campus, how to do it. Specifically today, we're going to talk with Maria Dahman and Laura Grady. You guys had been to any of our old open labs, if you guys had been to any of our old presentations for user experience and WiscWeb and things like that, these are some folks that you should be familiar with. But we asked them to come in and talk about the upcoming change / launch of the campus digital accessibility policy and talk a little bit about what their role is going to be in all of this, and what things you need to be aware of moving forward, what help might be out there for you. And so they are up. So Laura, Maria, if you guys want to unmute and say hi.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Matt. Hi, my name is Maria Dahman. I use she, her, and I'm really happy to be here with my colleague, Laura, and I'll let Laura introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. Actually, it's afternoon now. My goodness. My name's Laura Grady. I use she, her pronouns, and I work with Maria at the Center for User Experience. Thank you for having us here today. Okay, next slide, Matt. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is what this new policy states, the new digital accessibility policy. We're going to talk about what it means. We'll share why we need a new policy. We'll talk about each of the phases throughout the policy. Implementation, we'll talk about the Digital Accessibility Liaison Network. We'll share some resources to help you follow the policy, and then hopefully we'll have some time at the end to answer all the questions that you might have. All right, so before we get into the policy, let's talk a little bit about what we mean by disability. Very simply put, we can think about disability really as a mismatch between a person's capabilities and what their society, their situation, or their culture might demand of them. The image that you can see on the slide right now is from a Microsoft guide on inclusive design. And what we can see here are examples of permanent, temporary, and situational disabilities as it relates to our touch, our sight, hearing, and speaking. And there are all kinds of reasons that people might need accessible content. And many accessibility accommodations can support people with a wide range of abilities. So when you think about video captions, for example, those can help somebody who might be deaf, somebody who might have an ear infection, it's just a temporary hearing loss, and somebody working in a loud space. Maybe they're working in a loud coffee shop, for example. So, considering all of that, it's fair to say that it's not so much a question of if somebody has a disability, but it's really more of a question about when somebody has a disability. Next slide. So, when we make our digital content accessible, a person with a disability then has access to the same information. They can engage in the same interactions and they can enjoy the same services and benefits as somebody without a disability. Okay, next slide, please.
And we want to talk a little bit about the link between diversity, equity, and inclusion and people with disabilities. So the UW approved the updated digital accessibility policy in November of 2021, and they did this through the same very thorough process that all policies on campus go through. It was approved to align with the UW-Madison and UW system policies that protect people with disabilities against discrimination, and to honor our institutional statement on diversity, which strives to create a welcoming and inclusive community for people from every background. So I'm just going to read our statement on diversity. The University of Wisconsin-Madison fulfills its public mission by creating a welcoming and inclusive community for people from every background, people who as students, faculty, and staff serve Wisconsin and the world. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about why we need a new policy. Our old policy and resources didn't fully support our UW-Madison community. So UW-Madison's approach to digital accessibility was reviewed by 3 other Big Ten universities in 2018, and they found the policy to be outdated and too narrowly scoped to web pages and web resources, whereas we know that in our daily life, we're using a lot more applications. So the policy covered resources, for example, like wisc.edu as a website, but not more modern academic technology like the apps used for course registration or even just getting into a course. In recent years, there's also been more attention to violations of the rights of people with disabilities by federal agencies such as the Office for Civil Rights. Federal policy has made clear that public universities and universities that receive public funds in the form of, for example, student loans, are responsible for ensuring that their technology is accessible for people with disabilities. Next slide, please. So the new policy goes into effect on July 1st of this year. Until then, continue following the Web Accessibility Policy of 2001. But beginning July 1st, this new policy goes into effect. It also establishes a network of digital accessibility liaisons that we'll talk a little bit more about later. The policy also states that the Center for User Experience is here to help. So we are named in the policy as a body to help support both the dolls and to help people understand the policy better, which we're trying to do here today. So the goals of the policy are to raise awareness of digital accessibility concepts and best practices, because when we know better, we do better. And our hope is that this policy will encourage proactive consideration and evaluation of accessibility in our digital resources. We also want to guide the university toward procuring and developing accessible technology. And finally, the network of digital accessibility liaisons, or we call them DALLs. The DALLs will support both their units and each other. So we want to help spread digital accessibility through many different ways, but the DALLs are going to be a real key component of implementing this policy. A little bit more about the DALLs specifically. So your school, college, unit, division will be supported by a liaison, and the DALL liaison will serve as the primary contact for understanding and rolling out the policy. They will receive training for their role from the Center for User Experience. They will receive additional guides and training to share with content owners within their unit. And they will communicate with the Center for User Experience, primarily about digital accessibility barriers that have been identified within their units and any resources that they would like evaluated. We are aware, like these liaisons are not going to change their core functions of their role. So we wanted to be explicit about what the DOL is not. The DOL will not be determining the tools and platforms that their units buy and use. The DOL will not assume any legal oversight of their unit, and the DOL will not be testing digital tools to find barriers. There are other units on campus that will be responsible for taking on those tasks. Finally, we thought that perhaps some of you in this group might be interested in becoming a DOL. You do need supervisor approval to do so, but if you go to the go.wisc link here, that's go.wisc.edu/DAL, DAL-registration, it'll take you to a registration form. And again, you do need supervisor approval, but we'd be happy to have you. And we're beginning a pilot of the training that we've developed for the DOLs soon. So if that's something you're interested as well, please, you can either email me, maria.damon, DAHMAN, @wisc.edu, or I believe we have our digital accessibility at doit.wisc.edu on this presentation as well. So either of those, we will happily get you into that pilot.
Great, thank you, Maria. So we want you to feel comfortable in knowing that there is a phased implementation of this policy. We're certainly not going to all be expected as an institution to suddenly have all of our digital resources accessible in one fell swoop. So we just want to make that very clear to everybody. So the image that you can see on this slide shows students working on laptops in a lecture hall, which really demonstrates how much students are relying on technology and digital resources as part of their education. And so our goal is to really help the university grow incrementally toward a more inclusive digital campus, not just for our students, but also for faculty and staff. And again, we're not going to be expected to fix everything by tomorrow. We can really all work together to take small steps to make our content more accessible. So again, this policy will be rolled out over the next 8 years in yearly phases. And this will start again with the creation of the DOL network between now and July 1st, when the policy is effective. This next slide then shows a nice table with the phases and the effective dates throughout the entire 8-year process. So again, each yearly phase focuses on one resource or goal at a time. So again, for the first phase, our goal is to establish the DOLs in each of the units and create the DOL network. So when each of the phases of the policy do go into effect, we'll start to begin to proactively think about inclusive design of that particular resource. So again, after we establish the liaison network, we'll focus on document accessibility. So we'll learn how to create inclusive documents and evaluate our current documents for accessibility barriers. So then the design practices that we learn each year are really going to help build on one another toward a broader, more inclusive practices. So for example, what we learn about inclusive documents in our first phase can then be applied later to creating inclusive content in the following phases, like multimedia and websites, which I'm imagining the folks on the call today will be heavily involved with. All right, next slide. So we do have several helpful resources to help you understand and follow the policy. And I am just going to grab all these here because I'm not entirely sure if the slide deck will be made available. So, oh goodness, this is not the prettiest of copy and paste in the doc.
Is it something that you want me to make available, or because I could paste the URL into our chat?
Yeah, that could work. And
Okay.
I'm finding that you can only have 200 or 200, I don't know if it's words or characters at a time. So anyway, if we could get that pasted and shared with folks, that would be amazing. Thank you, Matt. That'd be great.
Let's say UW Madison Google Workspace. Well, so which means, folks, you're going to have to log in to view it. You'll have to log into your account to do it. There is the presentation.
Great. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Oh, nope, wrong. Actually,
Very
why don't I
cool.
just, why don't I, do you want me to open these up so you can touch on them or nah?
I don't think so.
Okay,
We can, if folks have questions about them, we can certainly
sure.
do that. And then as folks get access to these, which it looks like folks are hopping in, which is
Yep.
great. So we're on slide 13 right now, to help folks see where we are. So yeah, so if you want to go to the next slide then, Matt. So we just shared with you lots of information about the policy, what it means, why we need this policy. We talked, briefly at a very high level about the different phases of the policy, the DAL network, and we provided resources again on that slide 13 to help follow the policy. So we'd love to open it up to everyone right now with any questions. We've got
Yes.
lots of
So if
time,
you,
which is great.
we have plenty of time. This was the presentation for today, so we have plenty of time. So if you have questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. I'll just touch on a few things that are relevant to WiscWeb, for our audience here. First and foremost, the UW theme, the overall theme that we use is accessible. It's something that has gone through accessibility testing. It continues to go through accessibility testing. A number of things that the WiscWeb service implements, so like the dashboard things that we've been doing, plugins that we look at, we make sure, or we try our best to make sure that they are accessible. So things from the WiscWeb side of things, we do our best to make sure that they are accessible. The where we cannot guarantee accessibility for your websites is the content that you as editors and admins add to your sites. So some of the things that Maria and Laura touched on, like document accessibility, PDFs that you put and make available to download via your website. There's no way for WiscWeb or really anybody to know if they're accessible or not until someone who may have a disability tries to use them and can't. So that's where we always kind of talk about. For those of you who remember Sandy Arendokowski, she had been here and she was our main accessibility resource and expert. A lot of the times when I worked with her and I worked with sites for accessibility, we always talked about the fact that accessibility sometimes comes after the fact, and you need to get into the habit of it becoming before the delivery of the digital resource, either website, PDF, video, podcast, audio transcripts, things of that nature. So it has to be a habit that you get into ahead of time. And I say this lovingly because I do love working with all of you so very much. But whenever I work with folks doing support tickets or things of that nature, and I'm looking at your website and I'm helping you build a page out or fix a page out, and I'll look at your images, alt text is sometimes an absolute afterthought for or a no thought for some of the sites that I work with. And it really has to be a habit that you form. Accessibility, creating accessibility has to be a habit that you form as the caretakers of these digital resources. So that's kind of like my soapbox speech there is just the fact that you have to get out ahead of it. And if you don't, if you just simply don't think about it, it becomes an issue and it becomes a bigger issue the more stuff you put out there. So a couple of questions that have come into the chat. Will these policies need to be applied to internal intranet sites?
I can take that. Yes. So any digital resource in the university should be accessible. Now, there are um, I would say in the support documentation for following the policy, there is information about like how widely used is this resource. So for example, is this 10 people or 4 people looking at this intranet? Your risk is probably very low that you would, get sued or there'd be some sort of legal action because of it. But the idea is for us to get in the habit of making things accessible. And when you're in the habit, it's less of a load. But yes, and the short answer is internal intranet sites should also be accessible.
Has the McBurney Center been involved in the creation of these policies, this policy?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer. Laura, do you know if I don't remember who all was on? It was a committee that worked on this policy.
It was a committee, and I can't remember if Todd Schwanke was involved, but I do know that Ruben Moda, who is our ADA coordinator, he most certainly was part of that creation.
Yeah.
And the McBurney Center is very aware of the policy and very excited and supportive.
Yeah. So that would have been my thought was if Todd or somebody from McBurney hadn't been involved, they at least would be aware of it. And my assumption would be if they had strong opinions, those opinions have been voiced about it. So if the answer was no, I'd be surprised. If the answer is yes, then I'm certain that there's a lot of involvement from McBurney. How often will this policy be revisited, reviewed? 20 years sounds far too long for dynamic and cutting edge technology. Yeah, seeing that the last policy was 2001 was surprising. But how often is that a conversation that's been had? Like how often this will be reviewed?
I have not been involved in those conversations, but I imagine that, once we get through this 8-year cycle, I imagine that some sort of steps will be taken after that. But I have not been a part of conversations about what's next. Have you, Maria?
No, and yeah, 20 years is really too long. And that was the recommendation based on the external consultants that came in from other Big Ten schools. They're like, no, this is, there are many more things in our environment than existed in 2001. I will say the policy this time was phrased a way to make it more broadly. So, for example, the original one was explicitly called the Web Accessibility Policy. And this policy was very deliberately called the Digital Accessibility Policy. So we're looking at digital resources. So were a lot of attempts to make it more broad, like not listing a specific standard, like a version of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG, but mentioning WCAG. so as the versions change, it doesn't have to like change the policy, if that makes sense. I hope that answers some of your question, but I completely agree. 20 years was a very long time.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm just trying to look for some more resources to throw into chat here. Here's our campus accessibility site, accessible.wisc.edu. Again, just more resources there for people to be aware of. We do have it. I don't know what the contact information is regarding the accessibility community of practice. To look at my notes to see if I have that, but
It's in this slide, Matt.
Oh, it's right there in front of my face. Oh, it's a Teams link.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a link to a Teams group similar to our WordPress users group. So I would say for those of you who are interested in a little bit more information about this, join that team. For those of you who know him, Al Nemec, he's involved with this from CALS. He's the web developer from CALS. Ruben Moda, who earlier, and a few other folks who are very involved with campus accessibility, campus digital accessibility. We've had some very nice presentations there and some good conversations there. So I would definitely recommend joining that if this is if this is a passion that you are interested in following a little bit more, but also, it helps you. Um, Let me copy. This is going to be a really long Microsoft Teams link. I apologize, but there it is. That's the that's to join the Community of Practice Teams channel.
They're pretty active in this
Mm-hmm.
community of practice by, folks asking really good, thoughtful questions and helping one another work through different questions. Because, like we said in our presentation, we're kind of learning together here on some of these things. And, working with the liaisons, working with the center, working with each other to figure out best practices. As we mentioned as well, we do have quite a few resources and guides on the IT website and also through the accessibility resources through the, I think Matt put in the URL, yes, the accessible.wisc.edu. So lots of great online resources. And again, the Center for User Experience will continue to be here for folks our future plans are to offer office hours and to continue to offer our accessibility evaluations. So if you have, a web app or some other resources that you're like, I really don't know if it's accessible, I don't know how to do this thing, reach out to us. We're here to help you.
There was another question. Do we have any access to WCAG compliance tools, or are there any recommended tools? Um, I'll yield to you two for that. I know that in the past I have used the Wave tool for my website-based things, but I don't know if there's anything specific for like documents, digital documents. Yeah. Any resources that exist? WCAG?
Digital. Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, I also use the Wave extension. So that's if you go to WebAIM, you can download the WAVE Chrome extension. There you go. Thanks, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a tool that will crawl a lot of pages of an application that we use in our group. I don't know what campus-wide might be available, but that's a great question as far as like what enterprise software might we consider purchasing to support this effort. I think the intention is that the Center for User Experience would continue to provide these evaluations as a service to campus. But if you are, we certainly want to support people doing it on their own. WebAIM generally has a lot of solid digital accessibility support information. I also really like the Office for Civil Rights, which is within the Department of Education, has a lot of great videos about digital accessibility that can help get you started with. I believe there's something on like learning to test with a keyboard only, which is sometimes a shortcut to get to whether or not a screen reader can read something effectively. You also all, whether you know it or not, have access to screen readers on your devices. So if you use a Mac, the program is called VoiceOver. And if you're on a PC, you have what's called NVDA. Those are the two free screen readers that are available on every machine, and that you can, get information about how to use it and see what happens when you open those tools with your documents or websites that you're testing.
Let's see. As the university implements the policy, will it also provide? I think we just were answering that question. Technologies that might support making content accessible, for example, generating transcripts for podcasts. So that's the campus itself does have contracts with a couple of vendors. I think it's a couple. The last time I looked, it was two vendors, but I don't know off the top of my head where those resources are linked from.
Let me
but
find there is a
yeah.
KB. Let me find
Okay,
the
thank you.
KB.
All
Uh-huh.
right. But I know we do have contracts. It is paid. So it's not a free service, but there are services out there that can do transcripts, captioning of videos that you might put out there, things like that. Um, so are there resources? Yes, but they do come with cost as well, which
Mm.
I know does put a burden on some of our campus groups as well. But oh, go ahead, Laura. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to share too that I am one of the co-leads for design community, and we tend to record all of our events, and then we use the Kaltura tool, which is free for campus, to then do the auto transcriptions for us. So we turn the transcriptions on during the event as we're recording it, and then Kaltura then downloads the captions. Now they're not perfect, so we do have to go in and add speaker names and clean up any, um, any errors. But that's like, I mean, I shouldn't say it's free, right? Because I'm still getting paid to do that work. But that is an option. Um, you also have free tools available, as extensions to check your color contrast, for example, to make sure that somebody with low vision is able to distinguish a font from the background, for example.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll say I do these things through YouTube, so I let YouTube, Google do the captioning as well. Google has gotten much better with their captioning processes. Thankfully, that at one time it was atrocious, but it has gotten much better. So I am thankful for that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And PowerPoint, we use that a lot as well for design community, and that has an incredible accessibility checker in it. So I
Mm.
just run that app every time, or run that through PowerPoint, and it identifies everything that is wrong with the PowerPoint. So whether it's missing alt text, or whether it's missing um, like a title for each of the slides, or if two slides have the same title, you have to fix that. Reading order, because if you're using a screen reader, it has to read the page in order. And so it points all of those things out, and you just go in and do a quick fix. That is a really quick and easy process.
Maria, can you say what the PC screen reader tool was again?
NVDA.
I think this is it, nvaccess.org. No. To there. Not knowing anything other than that's what came up when I searched for it. Okay. So yeah, so that's I mean this was a quick do you have these resources on a website somewhere? I don't know. I know we don't. I don't know if you guys have those. If you as the Center for UX or
I do believe we do on the IT website. Let me pull up a link.
And I'm not sure if there's a website that has, for example, NVDA and VoiceOver, but we do have, yeah, what you're pulling up there, the Make It Accessible guides. Oh, so there is a pretty comprehensive guide called Make It Accessible, which is linked on the homepage of our webpage. And yeah, it's very robust. So it links off to a lot of different resources.
yeah. Yeah, if not, feel free to reach out to the team and ask. Oh, geez, one too many clicks backwards. Let's see here. They do have a form at the bottom there. The email was at the beginning of the presentation. I'll grab it real quick and drop that into the chat as well. There we go. So, any questions or looking for more resources, go ahead and drop the team an email and ask them questions. So, I'm glad we had the presentation went quick and we had plenty of conversation afterwards. So I'm glad we were able to leave all that time for conversation. I'll just do a little bit of brief wrap up here. Thank you to Laura and Maria for presenting. We will likely have more conversation about this in the future because again, it affects us all and we all have to be aware of it. And again, I implore all of you to think accessibility first as you are building out your content because it makes it easier in the long run for addressing any issues that may come up. Yeah, so that's our February Lunch and Learn. Thank you all for attending. Thank you all for the questions and the interaction in the chat. We do appreciate that. Just a heads up for next month, we are going to maybe look at doing our Lunch and Learn via Zoom again because we have some conversations that we want to have with all of you, and we might want to open it up for vocal feedback versus text feedback, just so people can chat with us a little more directly. But we have some things that we're going to be looking at and working on that we want you all to be aware of. But that's coming in March. I'll send out more information once we get closer to the March Lunch and Learn, and March is going to be it'll be March 9th. Oh, so literally 1 month from today. March 9th will be the March Lunch and Learn, so we'll chat then, but I'll send out some more information there. Yeah, as always, you guys know how to get in touch with me. See, Laura, I do it all the time. Laura and I had this conversation yesterday where we were in the habit of saying, you guys, it's not meant to be gender assigning. It's just simply a term, and I'm bad at it, and I need to think about not doing it anymore. So you all know how to get in touch with me. Please feel free to do so at any time, either via email or via Teams chat. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you all might have. But yeah, that's this month's Lunch and Learn. We'll swap back scene there. Thank you all for coming, and we will talk to you all soon. Take care and be safe.